Can you talk about that more? What areas should really be bracing for impact this weekend, especially?
Well, I haven't looked at the late. Some of these areas, like the Great Plains and Midwest, have already been experiencing, things like snow and freezing rain and so forth. I think some of those conditions will be extending into the Northeast if they haven't already at the time of us discussing this. So, this has really been a long-term event that has been impacting across the country all week, and so hopefully as we get to the end of the weekend we can bid it adieu, but we still do have a few more weeks of winter. Here in the South, where I'm at, we had 80-degree temperatures this week in Atlanta. And so it's really a tale of two air masses. Here in the South and East, we're in extremely warm, record conditions. And meanwhile, on the other side of the frontal system of the jet stream, we have very cold conditions out west and up in the upper Great Plains. That's just meteorology. Typically, weather is governed by this series of wave patterns. You have troughs and you have ridges of high pressure. And so here in the South, we're underneath one of those high ridge patterns, whereas in the West and parts of the middle country, they're under the trough, which tends to have cold air in at this time of year. So it's not strange from a meteorological perspective. It's just the amplitude of this event is quite severe.
Is 80-degree weather in February in Atlanta a norm, or are you
No.
sweating?
In fact, I wrote an article in Forbes about that prior to the one that we're speaking about. And I asked that very question, Brittany, that you just asked. I said, is it early to have 80-degree temperatures in Atlanta? We broke the all-time since record keeping record for February here in Atlanta with an 81-degree temperature on Wednesday. In fact, we tend to not see our first 80-degree temperatures here in Atlanta until March. And so to have 81 degrees in mid to late February certainly is rare. It's not unprecedented. There have been a few other cases, but uh, typically here in North Georgia and Atlanta area, typically around March. Now, if you get further south in the southern Georgia and Florida and the Gulf Coast, they can see 80s into late February. But here in the Atlanta area, it's a little bit early to have our first 80-degree temperatures. And that worries me. It sounds good because, oh, great, we can have our cookouts and hang out in our shorts and so forth. But things start blooming and we have an earlier allergy season when we see those kind of early warm temperatures as well. So there's always a trade-off.
It's been pretty mild in the Northeast as well, as we know this winter. I'm currently in New York. There's only been a few days, really, that I had to bust out the scarf, the gloves, the hat. So, can we expect that this is the last major winter storm this season?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I was just telling my son recently, even here in Atlanta, some of our biggest snowstorms come in March. So even though we expect 80-degree temperatures, our first 80-degree temperatures in March, we can also have winter weather here in Atlanta. And so I know the New Yorkers have been a little bit of a snow drought over the last several weeks, but don't give up hope if you want some snow. We can certainly see snow into March, perhaps even into April in parts of the Northeast. So I by no means would I say this is the last hurrah for winter.